Welcome to Trash Talk. I'm Will.
I'm Gabe. And today, we're going to answer the question, what is the greatest album of all time? Will?
I think that the greatest album of all time is from, arguably, the band that rocks the hardest of all time.
The hardest.
And that would be the one, the only, Led Zeppelin, with their fourth album. Unnamed. There's no nonsense here. It's Led Zeppelin's fourth album. It has this cool thing though.
So how would you know in 1972 that you're going to buy Led Zeppelin's new album? There's nothing on
because
there.
It's Led Zeppelin.
Wow. They gained that notoriety by the time their fourth album came out. The Beatles took the entire career to get to that point.
Did Please Please Me rock as hard as Led Zeppelin 2 though?
He makes a good point.
The little sleeve in here does say Led Zeppelin on it. The actual sleeve, the thing is in. Wow. Or actually, maybe it doesn't. It just says Zoso. Yeah, and it says their names. It doesn't say Led Zeppelin anywhere on this.
Amazing.
And then the lyrics for Stairway to Heaven on the way. But so the real thing here is that not only is this a great album and arguably one of Led Zeppelin's best, but it's the album that has Stairway to Heaven on it.
Okay.
Like
all right.
more,
okay.
Yes, we're talking about albums as a whole, and
I'm still
arguing about this as a whole. But the fact that this brought Stairway to Heaven to the world. Whenever people talk about great rock songs, Stairway to Heaven is always. I mean, like there are others, but like Stairway to Heaven is always up there. It's in countless movies. It's a cultural thing, and this is where that kind of.
Speaking of cultural things,
okay.
My vote for the greatest album of all time is none other than the best-selling album of all time, Thriller. You want to talk about cultural impact? You want to talk about great songs? We don't even need to stick to just Thriller. We have Beat It and Billie Jean on the same album.
It does have a wailing guitar solo.
It does have a wailing guitar solo.
So
if you're talking about rockin' hard, I'm here for you. And that's just talking about the songs. If we're allowed to talk about other things that came with this album, what about the most influential music video of all time?
Greatest music video of all time. What makes the Thriller music video influential?
You'll have to measure that by the cultural fallout from it. Okay. And using music videos as a way to, what's the word? Promote. That was really something that the singles off this album really pioneered. So I will go for Thriller as the #1 greatest album of all time. Not just empirically being the only album to be 33 times platinum. Can the same thing be said about Led Zeppelin 4?
I don't know. I have honestly no clue how many copies it sold. A lot.
But yes,
yeah.
I think we should listen to them.
I do too. my counterpoint to that is, or one of the reasons why this album is so influential is that "Stairway to Heaven" was one of the first really long songs to get radio play, and it paved the way, in a way, if you think about it, for songs like Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm trying to think of what are some other 5-minute plus songs that got
radio play.
Yeah.
What's that? Is Piano Man
Piano Man's
longer than
Piano Man's
5?
really long, but that's after both. Piano Man, I don't know what year Piano Man came out.
Our Billy Joel friends are.
I'm a Billy Joel friend. I don't
out.
I don't know the album dates.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's one of those songs that is long that actually gets radio play. But stop talking about Stairway to Heaven. I'm telling myself that. The rest of the album is great too. You got Black Dog, Rock and Roll. It starts out really hard and fast, and then we get the little interlude of Battle of Evermore with some great Lord of the Rings references, and some cool mandolin from Jimmy Page, and then the beginning of Stairway is that nice transition to calm, acoustic, and by the end it transitions from the individual notes to the chord section to we get that flow, and that helps you flow from Battle of Evermore straight into Misty Mountain Hop and Four Sticks, which are really into the still a little bluesy, but the really heavy Zeppelin kind of stuff. And then we go back for Going to California, which is a nice light song, and then we end with the deep bass drums from John Bonham and the slide guitar of When the Levee Breaks, which invokes, like I said, Led Zeppelin's a little bluesy, but we get a little bit of the Delta blues from Mississippi down there with the slide guitar and talking about the flooding.
It's true. Even though Breaking Levees, I only know of the title of that song because it's used as a title for the Spike Lee documentary about the Hurricane Katrina. And all the levees because that's when the levees broke.
Well, they have lots of so where blues people would have gained is the Mississippi Delta and the valley where the Mississippi River goes, kind of flooded like 3 or 4 times catastrophically throughout the 20th century, and then obviously more flooding happened during Hurricane Katrina. But I believe 1927, I want to say, is the first time that it kind of really flooded, and they as the years went on, they kind of started building up more. But there was a lot of people who living in Mississippi at the time who would have experience about levees breaking, and that's kind of what they're invoking with. I mean, obviously they're from not Mississippi, but
are Led Zeppelin technically part of the British invasion, or are they too late?
I think they're too late.
They're too late.
Maybe you could argue Jimmy Page, when he was playing with the Yardbirds, was part of the British invasion, but that's a different argument entirely. Which is
because this is Led Zeppelin's 4th studio album, Michael Jackson's 6th studio album.
Yeah, and that's another thing is I think this is kind of I love Led Zeppelin 1 and 2, and 3 is my personal favorite. But they're hopping around with sound wise. This is kind of where they reached the sound that they would continue for Physical Graffiti and
so this is the turning point in their.
Yes, I think this is where, like, not where they peaked, but this is where they really truly found the stride. Even saying that though, the first 3 albums are amazing, but I think this is where they truly peaked in and set the stage for being probably one of the biggest bands of the 1970s.
I think both of our choices kind of represent the peaks of each artist. I'm not to say that Michael Jackson didn't have good music post-Thriller, but I don't think anything ever came close.
And we're also picking 2 different decades, really.
We are picking.
I mean,
the 70s and the 80s.
I don't know.
There
that
are
much
11
about,
years between them, 83 and 72.
Yeah. And I don't know how much if Michael Jackson released any music outside of like the Jackson 5 in the 70s, but Led Zeppelin is almost exclusively 1970s because John Bonham died in 1980 and the band broke up.
Right.
And their first album was 1969. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing is they released the first 3. Their first 4 albums within like 4 years. The first 2 I think are both Led Zeppelin 1 and 2 are both 1969.
Hey.
Then 3 is 1970, and then like another. I think this is 71 or 72. It might be 71. Yeah.
The other thing I want to talk about is their appearance. I feel like if you showed Led Zeppelin 4's album cover to your average individual, I don't think they would recognize it. I think if you took the title off, people
Well,
would know
it has
what
a fa-
this
it has a
is.
face on it.
It has a face on it. It has a face on it, but him laying this way, kind of illuminated
do
like
you
he's an
think-
angel,
I would-
that is iconic to a whole new level.
I think it depends on who you're qualifying as average.
Anyone.
But it depends on who that average is. Is that average someone who was alive when either of these albums came out? Then they probably know. I think anyone. I agree with you. I think anyone would know that this is a Michael Jackson album, but I'm not sure they would know that this is Thriller.
We also both picked albums that have wonderful gatefolds. Yours has that really cool.
Yeah, as I
that-
showed this earlier.
Yeah, look at that. That's awesome. But and then you got over here, you got Michael Jackson
With a
being like
tiger.
a proto Tiger King. You know, you can kind of see his face. He doesn't really know what to do with the tiger. He's
He
kind of
does- he
just
does look a
he's
little
looking a little
awkward, doesn't he?
awkward there, doesn't he? But iconic nonetheless. So yes. And I think something similar about both of these albums. Every single song could have been a #1 single. Every
agree.
song by itself stands up, and they're not interconnected to each other.
Yeah, they're not really. Even though this one was more around that time of when concept albums
Yeah.
were big, and Led Zeppelin kind of sort of did that, but not nearly as much as, especially because that was right when prog was really taking off, 1971 too.
Yeah. But every song here, Wanna Be Starting Something, Baby Be Mine, The Girl Is Mine, featuring Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
Thriller, Beat It, Billie Jean, Human Nature, Pretty Young Thing, The Lady in My Life, all of that, it fits within the genre. Nothing is ever, it's not too dissimilar from itself, but each one is unique.
Yeah.
Each one has a sound that's identifiable. They all fit
both as their own
moods.
songs and as
Yes.
artists.
Yes.
But I think that's a really good comparison because I think I think that stands for this as well. With all of these songs, kind of could stand as their own as a
Could stand as
single,
their own.
even if they didn't.
Yeah.
But
I mean-
that makes them. That also is what makes the album itself.
It elevates the album.
There's
everything
no
on it.
one weak point.
There's no one song where you could be like, the album would be just as good without this.
Yeah.
If you took one of those songs out,
I mean, the argument to be made that Stairway is so good that it would take away from it, but I think it would still be a phenomenal album without it. It wouldn't be the same.
no. I do think that depending on the individual you're talking to, some would say that these albums are only carried by one or two songs. That there's one or two iconic songs that everybody knows off
Yes,
each album.
both of them have more iconic songs than the other ones.
Than the
But
other
I'm
ones.
saying I think what we're both saying is that in the absence of those songs, the other songs would rise to be as iconic.
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
only because those songs are there that they even have a chance to outshadow the others.
Yeah. I think you could have taken Thriller off this album and called it Beat It. And it
Yeah.
would have been,
Oh, absolutely.
would have been
Absolutely.
maybe not a 33 times platinum
Yeah.
inviting Michael Jackson to meet Ronald Reagan at the White House influential
Yeah.
though. Either way. But it is interesting that nothing has sold better than this after or before. Before or after. Like this is still #1.
It broke records, but then
It broke records. There's still records that
Nothing-
it holds.
So nothing in the 90s really eclipsed this, and then we kind of are witnessing, like, not really the death, but the downfall of album rock, because you get the iPod and you get everyone buying
Everyone's got it, yeah.
buying songs individually, and now that the album isn't really a thing that holds any weight.
No. The last album that I can think of that was like, it has to be an album, would be American Idiot. Where it's like the
Okay.
entire album is a rock opera. It's all parts, where listening to it from beginning to end is a different experience than listening to any song individually.
Yeah.
I think you could listen to any individual song of these two albums and it doesn't
Well, like I said,
affect
they're
your...
they're not really doing that kind of concept album kind of rock opera thing. But I'm just like, there are definitely other albums that were released with the intention of being listened to as an album.
Yes.
But society doesn't really focus on albums anymore.
No. So I don't think there will ever be an album that outsells Thriller.
No,
If anything, #2 or #3 would see a resurgence for some reason. Like after Michael Jackson died, all of his music was #1 in the summer of '09.
Yeah.
Like he crushed it because everyone wanted to listen to his music because he had just died.
Or like Wayne's World came out and everyone wanted to listen to Bohemian Rhapsody again.
Right. Or Ferris Bueller came out and Twist and Shout by the Beatles went to #1.
There's a lot of reasons for resurgence.
So the number 2, as we have here, we have Back in Black is number 2 as far as most selling album of all time.
Yes.
What would it take for an AC/DC resurgence to bring Back in Black above Thriller?
Do you think Brian Johnson dying, this being Brian Johnson's first album with AC/DC, do you think that would be the onus for that?
I think it's possible, but I think Brian Johnson would need more clout amongst everyday
that's
people.
What I was going to say.
Anybody knows who Michael Jackson is.
I don't think that either Meatloaf or AC/DC has a leading person that is enough of a personality.
Yeah.
Meatloaf more than AC/DC, but still much less than Michael Jackson or Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, the Prince of Pop. Is he the King of Pop?
He's the King of Pop.
He was the King of Pop. Yeah. So, I mean, you don't get a title like that if you don't drop the greatest album of all time. If you become the king because you did something royal, and that would be the greatest album of all time. Really.
Or Led Zeppelin 4.
I mean, if you were to pick the best song off that album, it would be Stairway. Like, if you had to rank the songs off LC4.
Just because it accomplishes so much and is so ambitious, like I said, being a long song, combining those basically completely different styles and managing to meld them into one coherent thing and not make it go, why did they just change that? It's really ambitious that way, in a way that the other songs aren't quite.
Yeah.
But it would be difficult for me to rank, but I think Stairway to Heaven would still end up.
Yeah. And I think while Thriller is the title, the song is elevated by the music video. So the song by itself is not as good. It's still great. It's not as good as Beat It.
Interesting.
I think Beat It takes Thriller for the best song on the album. Mm-hmm. But obviously, Thriller and Billie Jean have influential music videos that have infiltrated pop culture to an almost immeasurable degree. The moonwalk is so identifiable as a dance move, and the red Thriller jacket and the do-do-do-do-do, just that by itself. You could play the opening notes to Thriller to just about anybody and they would know what that is, though. Iconic. Easily. Yes. Easily components of a song off the greatest album of all time.
How many times are you going to say the greatest
album? I'm going to say it 33 platinum times, because that's
33 times per minute.
33 times per minute. Someone figure out how many times I would need to say it per second. But as we talk about these albums, we have to address the elephant in the room about music. In that it's different for everyone.
Yes.
Everyone's music taste
Your music
is
taste.
unique. Your music taste, his music taste, my music taste, their music taste over there. Everyone's music taste is unique and different. Therefore, their greatest album of all time is going to be different than what we just put forward.
And neither of us are really arguing that these are our favorite album of all time either.
Absolutely
These are
not.
what we think, based on our experiences, are the greatest album of all time.
Yes, either because of influence or empirical evidence.
This was one of the CDs that I kept in my car for about 8 years. Was always Led Zeppelin 4.
And this was the album that most Americans kept in their house every day post 1983.
Yeah.
But other albums exist that many people, many educated music scholars have agreed.
That's us. We're educated music
Of
scholars.
course, yes. I meant us.
Yeah.
You've got things like Rubber Soul by the Beatles.
You have Electric Ladyland by Jimi Hendrix Experience.
Or Sheer Heart Attack by Queen.
Another one of my favorites, personally.
Or, of course,
Rumors, which is, I think, 7th. It's
in the top 10.
It's close to.
It
for
joins
top selling.
these over here as far as influence and number sold.
Yeah.
Of course, my personal favorite album of all time is Broadsword and the Beast.
Yeah.
But
one of my favorites is Sheer Heart Attack. Gabe's got it hiding there.
it's in there somewhere. Ta-da! Yes.
This is my favorite Queen album, but these are all great.
All of these could be qualified as the greatest album of all time. But of course,
Gabe and I share a favorite in this one. Abbey Road by the Beatles.
So yes, please tell us what you think the greatest album of all time is, and tell us why you think that.
The foulest stench is in the air, the funk of 40,000 years, and grisly ghouls from every tomb are closing in to seal your doom. And though you fight to stay alive, your body starts to shiver, for no mere mortal can resist the evil of the Thriller.